Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with your host, ajmahari. This podcast will give you an in-depth understanding of borderline personality disorder, whether you have it or a loved one, partner, ex, friend, adult child, or sibling of someone with borderline personality disorder. Mahari is a counselor and trauma recovery coach who has 30 years experience working with those surviving borderline personality relationship breakups in all relationship types, healing from codependency, inner child healing, family of origin healing and self-differentiation, narcissistic abuse recovery, and much more. Keeping it real to help you heal. Abuse is not love. You can find this podcast at ajmahari.ca, where you can also purchase and book sessions with Mahari.
Will my BPDX come back? The uncertainty of no contact. Because almost everyone who's been in a relationship, significant other relationship with somebody with borderline personality disorder or suspected BPD, the patterns seem to be there. When that relationship ruptures, when you are ghosted or discarded, or even if you're the one that tries, you break up. The breakup is so fragile, is so painful, is so nonsensical and confusing. And in fact, more breakups than not with somebody with BPD or the patterns of and suspected BPD. You're very close. Most people, and I've been working with clients for 32 years, will say, but we were so close. We had some rough patches, and I, was trying to help him or her out. But then we got really close, and the next day, boom, everything blew up, or the person left, or they ghosted, etc. So this question really goes through everybody's mind with a BPD relationship breakup and how to survive that BPD relationship breakup. One of the first questions is, will my BPD ex come back? And then what is the uncertainty of no contact about for those who even get to no contact? Because that in itself is a very painful process. I'm out here to work with people who might be in a phase of a breakup, on and off cycles, or you don't know what's going on. You're in that limbo place I've talked about, but you want to know if your BPDX will come back, and you have an uncertainty about no contact, trying to go no contact, or you are no contact, but there's still all this uncertainty. What is that about, and why is that? Your uncertainty is driven by many different aspects that speak to how you're in the relationship in the first place, what you need to heal as a person with codependency, how you need to get into a healing recovery journey process, which I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, and how important it is to look at why are you still so focused and putting all your energy, thought, and time in a very painful way into, are they going to hoover me? Can I hoover them? What if I just send one more text? What if I try to tell them this? What if I write them a letter? And where does all this really come from? And how can there be, and by the way, none of this is no contact. And so the uncertainty of no contact, what's that really mean? It means you're not really no contact. And that's not to say that when people absolutely are no contact moving forward and working in a healing recovery process, that there isn't maybe still this uncertainty or this unsettled, painful process to still work things forward. But there should be no energy. It's not in your best interest to have energy focusing on people with BPD all the time, watching too many videos just about that, and not being focused on yourself. But this is a codependent, externalized out repetition compulsion cycle. So that the more you focus on the BPDX, the more you're emboldening and empowering your codependency, an aspect of self and the way that you relate, and what's causing you a lot of pain. It didn't cause you all the pain you're in because your ex had a lot to do with that. It's really important to realize with this that, the focus on them is going to keep you stuck. And it's going to continue to make your pain actually worse over time. And so many people are worried about, well, it feels like I'm never going to hear from them again. Because you might not yet realize that, well, that would hurt. And you might not be in a healing recovery journey and working through how to cope with that emotionally and what that really means for you. It would be a gift if they never contacted you again. Easier said than it is to get to feeling and knowing that. So many people after a BPD relationship breakup, a ghosting and discarding, you are trying so hard to find out if there's a chance or a way that you're going to hear from that person again. Or will they reconsider? Oh, will the borderline hoover you, recontact you to try to repair something? No. Untreated, people with BPD or people suspected of having BPD, they don't know how to do any kind of reparation. And that's why things are so black and white for them and so painful for you. You're not going to find peace or happiness or contentment with yourself by trying to chase or pursue or wait for the hoover from the borderline. Because you know what? You've already been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the agony and the wounds. And you know, it's really true that when you were in the relationship, but you might not be focused on this right now, you had a commensurate level of uncertainty, probably more often than not, more often that you realized, that is now you are re-experiencing after the breakup, but it was also part of the relationship. There's a lot of uncertainty in life, and we need to learn how to radically accept that. And what codependents struggle with is how to learn to accept that which you cannot change and to start working on what you can change, which is you in a healing and recovery process. And also, codependents need to learn how to stop trying to control externally, learn how to control yourself inside emotionally, healing family of origin and childhood woundedness. And you might be wondering, like, what happened? It doesn't make any sense. And even if you watch a plethora of videos, you might still be confused because it still does hard to make sense out of what doesn't make sense. And there's a lot more I'm going to be talking about that also in coming mini courses. But a lot of people start thinking a lot about, after the BPD relationship breakup, are they thinking about me? Because maybe they were so mean, so cruel, so cold, so not present, so yelling or screaming at you, blaming you one way or the other for things from their past. It's a dissociative experience they're having, and they blame you for all of these things that have nothing to do with you. And then the really painful reality that you need to process in a healing recovery journey, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, is just how little you were seen and heard by the BPDX. Even in the relationship, how little you were actually experienced for who you really are. Because it's all about object, other, parent representation that you become in an unconscious way for people with untreated borderline personality. So you wonder if your ex's feelings will change or could change. Well, they could change 100,000 times, and people are on and off, on and off, and on and off. But the thing is, that's never going to lead anywhere. That just takes you around more and more painful cycles and increases your pain exponentially every time. And then some people may, in an emotional way, get addicted to that cycle because the pleasure of the reconnect is awesome, but then there's going to be the inevitable rupture again and the agony of that. People with BPD often aren't steadfast in any decisions that they make because they're always based on emotional whims and impulse. But that doesn't mean that you should be in that space, or that it's healthy for you to be in that space of will they come back or won't they come back, and this uncertainty on the pathway to no contact, because there can be uncertainty, as I said, in no contact, but it's not the same thing at all, because going no contact is steps further down the line in a healing and recovery journey working with someone. And when people with BPD hoover you, as I've spoken about before, they're going to tell you everything that you want to hear, but there's no substantial change. People with BPD need a lot of treatment, takes a lot of time. People with codependency, you need your own treatment. Doesn't take as long as recovery from BPD. But you're not going to be able to patch the relationship back together. And you're not going to be able to get them into therapy, and then that means you can stay in the relationship and something about that will work or change. Not at all. But I know a lot of people really focus on that. And it's really hurtful to do so, but it's also very human. You might be thinking of many possible outcomes or trying to think, well, there's got to be a way to get them back and we'll work it out. That's codependent denial. That's the repetition compulsion cycles and codependency from family of origin and inner child wounding that you are replaying out, not in a conscious way, with this BPDX, thinking that if you can just get them back, everything will be fine. But it won't ever be fine, because untreated, these relationships don't work out. And you have to learn more about what it is that you need to heal, because you have all the empowerment in the world to get into healing recovery journey. And I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, to actually start to heal and change your own history of woundedness. You can't rescue, save, inform, teach, help a borderline, and you can't make the relationship work. So to radically accept that is very important and very difficult and very painful. But if you get to no contact, I'm not saying there won't still be a lot of emotions to work through, but it's not the same kind of uncertainty, because if you're in no contact, what would be uncertain about the no contact? Yes, people can still be longing for the ex, but the last thing you need is to go around again with that ex. It just doesn't feel that way. That's very difficult. The heart of the cognitive dissonance that runs oh so deeply inside you because of your own codependent patterns that you may not yet be aware enough of where are the connectors to those. And then to the BPDX, because it's not really as much about the BPDX as you might think it is, but it certainly feels that way. And you don't have any control over what they do, and yet you surrender your own agency, you abandon yourself to try to have control over them to make it work. And that speaks to woundedness and patterns that you are still enacting in an unconscious way from your childhood, when your needs weren't met by a parent, which is the seeds and the roots of codependency. And a lot of people really get into the pain, the agony of not only the question of will my ex come back, but will all the plans that we made together, we talked about marriage, we talked about family, will they ever come to fruition? I'm here to give you the tough love answer. No, they won't. But maybe you're not ready to accept that yet. You might be thinking, what would that relationship look like in 5, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years from now? But you're projecting yourself into a future. That's uncertainty. That is unlikely to see you and the borderline being able to have a healthy relationship anyway, because they always so often don't go for treatment and nothing changes for them. And then you need your own healing and recovery from codependency. So it's really important not to be in the here and now, which is painful. It's really important to do that and to not be projecting yourself into the future. Way easier said than done. But I help clients with that, working with them. This reality of the uncertainty, not so much of the no contact, but the all these plans and will this happen and could that be, and it's codependent denial, and you're trying to protect yourself from this agony inside that you really need to heal. That isn't all about the borderline, but could have a lot to do with how they treated you, etc., how they hurt you. But it leaves a big question mark for so many people for so long if you don't get into healing recovery journeys. And even then, you're going to be dealing with that question, many questions, because you imagined and you felt like it was going to be so different. So you might be feeling really lost right now. You might not feel like you know who you are anymore, as I've had many clients describe to me. And you might be really directionless, maybe not in your work life, etc., but just emotionally speaking, which is a very painful thing too. So will you ever get your BPDX back? Will they ever contact you? It's hard to turn off those thoughts, the very thoughts that are driving your feelings, because your HPA access is on high alert. You've been hurt and you're having an entirely unconscious reaction to this that is much deeper than even all that you do know, all that you are thinking, all the questions that you do have, all the rumination that you are experiencing. The HPA axis in the flight, fight, freeze, or fawn responses to adverse experience and then some is like an alarm system. Would you ignore a fire alarm because you just think, well, it'll naturally work out even if half your house is on fire? You're going to ignore that? Because essentially, emotionally, in a way, there's a parallel there. That's a metaphor. that you're in a burning house, but you don't want to leave because you still have hope maybe the whole thing won't burn. Maybe something about it will be salvaged and you can carry on from there. Because being with a person with untreated borderline personality disorder or undiagnosed but patterns thereof is like being in a burning building and trying to live as if there was no fire. You may feel like you need to get that person back to fix this, but that's not really true. That's denial. That's your externalized repetition, unconscious repetition compulsion cycles still being driven by your wounded inner child. You think you need to fix this. No, you need to fix you because you can't fix them. And there are hormones that actually tell us, they give us this energy and this drive and this focus to want to get back with someone, right? Because it was in the beginning so pleasurable and maybe intermittently at times very pleasurable. It's the pleasure pain principle on fire. Because every time you get a little bit of pleasure, you're going to get a whole lot more pain. You need to do the opposite of what it feels like you so badly need and want right now. It's about getting into a healing recovery journey. I'm out here to work with you, but I resonate with you, where you will learn to strategize about how to do the opposite of what you feel and how important that is in healing and recovery. People get into routines and cycles, and it's not just brain driven, by the way. It's not like, oh, your brain likes cycles and routines. No, it's more your mind and your emotional landscape that has a strong need for that. But you need to find your own emotional rhythm in a healthier relationship to and with yourself. And was there really ever a routine of communicating or feeling in sync or really connected to your ex in any consistent, congruent way without like the eggshells and the breadcrumbs and the on and off, which might not have been the whole relationship on and off, but the splitted evaluations and then coming back to base, which never goes back to re-idealization. People with codependency confuse really poor treatment and love. And that goes back to what you experienced in your family of origin as well, that you may or may not be aware of consciously yet. So you can be feeling a lot of pain because that loss, it was like a rupture. It was so immediate. It was like no closure, which is only the tip of the iceberg of what really that's all about. And you may be very anxious, and it might be all that you can focus on. And that's a good reason to get into working with someone, because you're not going to be able to pull yourself out of that. And if you end up recycling, etc., you really weren't ever no contact. And so the uncertainty is coming more from what you experienced as a child and being projected onto by your inner child, your wounded inner child, projected onto this person, your BPDX. It's not really all about the BPDX the way that it feels and seems. It's important to stay in the present moment, not think too much about the past and getting stuck in the cognitive dissonance that you could have of it, and forgetting about the really painful experience, the bad. And it's helpful to stay in the present so that you're not projecting yourself into the future and thinking about what could have been, because I say to you with respect and compassion, what could have been isn't going to be. And you may not be accepting that yet. Focusing on what's uncertain, what's not known, and what you have no control of is really self-defeating, and it increases your pain. And you might feel right now like you're never going to get out of this pain, like without getting back with that person, there's no way to go forward. You feel lost. You don't know who you are anymore. How could this happen? Why did they do this to me? I'm a good person. I don't understand. All I did was try to help them and love them and gave them all, invested financially and emotionally in them. And it all feels really, quote, unfair, unquote. And there's no fairness to it. And this is a trigger for people with codependency, back to a lack of belonging needs in childhood and a plethora of other needs that you didn't have met for you in childhood. The more you think about the future or the possibility of getting back or hearing from your BPDX, even if you are sort of in a no contact mode, often people are in that space but still watching social media, the reverse stealth Hoover as I call it, or living in a vicinity and area, or sharing friends in common, and you're not really out of the loop, and so you're not really no contact. Because there's a lot of different feelings that go with getting to no contact, working through in the process of healing and recovery, working with someone. If you truly are no contact and you're working on that and you're in a recovery journey, out here to work with you if I resonate with you, there isn't so much uncertainty in actual no contact as in sort of no contact and really not no contact. Sometimes you have to take it minute by minute in the here and now of each day. Distraction techniques, anything you can do that's healthy to break the rumination and the focus of externalizing out that you need to get them back to be okay. You need to get them back to meet your needs. That's the only person you ever wanted. That's the person you dreamed of. Because, that's all really a mirage. And that's coming from your wounded inner child in your unconscious, seeing and experiencing similar patterns that were experienced in a wounding way in childhood. Because your inner child is, in your unconscious, wanting and longing for the borderline X because the inner child is looking for reparation. The way to get that reparation and to heal is to work with someone, not to keep going back to the object other, in a way, representation for codependence as well, to your inner child of mother or father or sibling or whoever hurt you in your childhood. It's really important to be aware of this. And you might feel abjectly helpless and powerless, and it might feel very uncomfortable because it's very vulnerable. This vulnerability, when I work with clients, gets changed into a strength, and then of course the narrative around it we work through and change in the actual healing and recovery process. Codependents, you are looking for that getting back with that BPDX or hearing from them again to provide you the externalized out sense of emotional safety that you need. Doesn't really provide you that though. And many people with codependency right now after a breakup don't know, or even in the relationships, don't know how to feel emotionally safe, because on the borderline roller coaster, even when the relationship is on or when you were in it prior, there was no emotional safety for you. There's something familiar about their chaos deep in your unconscious. And everybody needs to feel supported. Even more to the point, you need to learn how to support yourself too. So many people with codependency have a distorted belief that's unconscious, right? Coming from that wounded inner child. This false idea that in some way this ex of yours will be your savior as you try to save them. There's nothing about love in there. It's not healthy. It's not going to work out that way. That's not how you're going to heal. That's not how you're going to change your relationship to and with yourself. That's not how you're going to go from being codependent to independent and healthier relating. And having compassion and empathy for yourself and self-esteem and being who you really are in a more fully aware way and an empowering way. It can be scary to be alone. And some people might be able to be alone with codependency, but there's still an element in the unconscious, wounded inner child, that alone equals scary, alone equals bored, alone equals lostness. And you might well be experiencing separation anxiety that you may have been really wounded by in childhood. Not everybody hears back from the ex, but how can you be in the uncertainty of no contact if you are willing to have, if there's an avenue that they can still contact you with and you're still wanting to hear back from them or try to get them back? That's only going to increase your pain. It's increased your pain right now, but if you get back with them, it will increase your pain exponentially. The future is the future for a reason, because we haven't got there yet. So you need to think about the now and focus on childhood, healing from woundedness in childhood, and then focusing on the now and how are you going to go forward, because a lot of what you're feeling right now, will my BPDX contact me, could we get back together, in the uncertainty of probably not achieve no contact, not seriously, because even if you're not speaking to the person with BPD or they won't speak to you, the ex, how are you no contact when you are totally focused on it all day long? Now that's not contact exactly, but you are engaged with it all still, and the cycles of it to take you away from yourself. It's important to work at building your trust, again, in a healing and recovery process, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, so that you can learn to withstand the pain, lean into the pain, and connect the dots back to where it originates and why you have codependency in the first place. And then we do the healing work of unlearning what you learned in childhood and reframing that so that you can go forward. You will find relief there is some grief in the process, and you will be letting go, and you will learn to let go of the BPDX in learning to let go at a deeper level of what happened to you in childhood and what is still being carried in your unconscious. And when you don't know what to do right now, distract yourself and don't do anything about what you're thinking about, what you're longing for. You need to keep taking steps forward, even if emotionally it feels like you're just going in an impossibly painful circle, because that's not really what's happening if you get into a healing and recovery journey. And that healing and recovery journey involves also you learning how to have the agency in your own life, meeting more of your own needs as you heal your wounded inner child, so that you're not looking externally to have someone else meet those needs. And you're not going to overgive, and you're not going to try to rescue and be doing all of that to try to get what you actually need and deserve. The uncertainty of no contact really more often than not suggests that you're really not no contact. And how could you be no contact? In essence, you're in contact fully, constantly with the rumination, the cognitive dissonance, the focus on the X, even when you're not talking to them. It's still all about them. It's still you externalizing everything about them and abandoning yourself. And I hope that you can hear me when I say, whether I resonate with you or not, whether you'd like to work with me or someone else, please do reach out and get into a process of working this through with someone who's an expert in this area like I am, because otherwise you're going to continue these circles and you're not going to understand fully what's happening for you emotionally. And the focus on the BPDX is being driven by something in your unconscious that you need to learn more about, and how to refocus and how to reframe and actually how to heal, so that you won't be in these codependent cycle patterns anymore. But it feels and you think that it's all about the BPDX, and it isn't. And that's a key thing to think about and be mindful of in the here and now. As if you're not working with someone, you look for someone to work with, or perhaps you might want to work with me, and get into that work and have support and learn how to do this healing and recovery, because sometimes the BPDX will come back. But if you recycle the relationship, it's only going to rupture again and again and again. And it's not going to work out. And this is the hardcore truth of it, that you don't want to know yet, because it's very painful. And then where does that pain go back to? So why do you have all your eggs in the basket of the BPDX when unconsciously so many of those eggs belong in the basket of what happened in your childhood, what wounded you, how were mom and dad, what was the family structure, what was happening in your family of origin, how did you get so hurt, how did you get so wounded that now you self-abandon, and wondering if the BPDX will come back, which is the last thing you actually need, but it feels like what you want. And the uncertainty of no contact is anathema, because if you're truly no contact and you're working through the process and you're building on that strength, as I help clients to do, then you're not going to be feeling that uncertainty. You're going to know where the home and roots of that uncertainty truly is inside of yourself, and be working on how to really heal that. I hope that was helpful. It's really important to know that there isn't that uncertainty in actual no contact. Not that that is a cure-all, of course not. There's still pain. There's still a lot of issues to work on and heal in a formal process of healing and recovery. But actual no contact doesn't hold the uncertainty of people that haven't yet been able to go no contact, or who think they're no contact. Because I have so many clients that share this with me. Yeah, I'm no contact, but they're still texting, or there's still an avenue of communication open, or people are still watching the ex's social media. All of this is increasing your pain, and the reason is because unconsciously within your wounded inner child, there's so much more you need to know about what's going on in there, and you need to heal that. And when you do, as I've worked with many clients who have, you will not care to focus on what happened with the borderline anymore. And are they coming back or aren't they coming back? The uncertainty is not really about the BPDX. It goes all the way back to what wounded you in childhood. Take care.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari, keeping it real to help you heal. Abuse is not love. You can find this podcast website with blogs and more information and purchase some book sessions with AJ Mahari at ajmahari.ca to help you with your healing and recovery journey from any relationship type with somebody with borderline personality. Please also check AJ's other website, bpdbreakups.com, for blog posts and more information. Please keep tuning in.